Hello everybody and welcome back to Screen Stars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2018 horror thriller Headshots, a film that is written and directed by Chris O'Neill, who also stars in the film. And this is a film that focuses on a young English aspiring actress who heads over to Hollywood to try and make herself big in the acting world. She has a dream, she wants to be an actress. She doesn't think she's going to get much opportunity in the UK, so she heads over to the US, to Los Angeles, much to the dismay of her brother and sister. And her brother is played by Chris O'Neill himself, who wrote and directed the film. Now, this once in the US, she starts going to these acting classes to network, to try and make some connections so she can get some auditions. And she is told to go and get some new headshots with a local photographer. However, what she doesn't realise is that she is being used by a crazed serial killer who uses this acting class to target young actresses who have taken the star away from her, and she points them in the direction of her husband, who is a photographer, who essentially isn't a very nice person, and they are a pair of serial killers. Now, this film is a low-budget independent horror film, and I was sent this film as an early screener. It's a 2018 film, but it's just doing the rounds now, and it's close to getting its release. So I was given the opportunity by the director, by the filmmakers, to review this movie. And I have to say, for a low-budget horror thriller, this film, in a lot of ways, is really quite impressive. And by that, what I mean is, it manages to be socially relevant, but also entertains as well. It also works as a very dark comedy as well, this film, and I mean very dark comedy. There's a layer of dark humour that runs through this film that actually makes you feel quite uncomfortable. And some of it's a bit goofy, and some of it is just a bit dark, and at times this film can be pretty shocking and brutal in some places. Some of the horrific scenes that you'll have to witness here are actually quite disturbing if you analyse them. When you see the serial killers do what they do, it ain't pleasant to watch. So the fans of real horror are going to get a nice surprise, because it doesn't hold back, it doesn't pander to its audience, this film, and it gives you a couple of good shocks here and there. Now, the low budget does shine through now and again, in a sense of there's a few pauses in the sound here and there as it transitions from scene to scene. There's a couple of performances, not necessarily from the primary cast. I think they all do a good job here, but there's some of the lesser characters, some of the US actresses in the acting class. Some of their performances are a little bit amateur, I suppose you could say, but it actually does quite a good job, this film, of masking that, because you're not sure if they're meant to be really bad, because they're doing these overacting scenes and things like that. So it masks it reasonably well, but it can't be denied there are some reasonably poor performances here and there. And some of the effects, I think for the budget they had, they did a decent enough job. The biggest problem I had with the effects on display here is there are a couple of brutal stabbing scenes in the film, and they're just not very impactful, and by that you'll see them doing the stabbing motion, but it's fairly clear they're stabbing thin air, or they're not stabbing anything, even though you can see the blood splattering on them and things like that. I think it would have been better if they did it off the camera, because you don't really see any of the actual stabbings. You just kind of see them doing the motions and then the blood. It probably would have been better if they actually had have stabbed something, I don't know, a watermelon, I don't know, anything, just to give it some impact, because that let them scenes down a bit, because they were very brutal and shocking, and then you can kind of tell they're not stabbing anything. So But I've got to say, I was reasonably entertained by this film. I'm surprised. I think it was, like I said, I think it was socially relevant these days. Everybody's desperate for fame, and this highlights some real issues in regards to some of the stumbling blocks, some of the issues that you could face when you're chasing that fame. It's actually quite dangerous, I suppose. There's other issues as well. They meet with a police officer, but they kind of meet with this police officer in like an underground parking garage. And he gives them good advice and stuff, kind of, even though he kind of says nothing I can do, not right now. And then he gets in and drives off. Why they didn't go to the police station, I don't know. I'm sure it was all budgetary reasons and stuff. So there are a couple of issues with the film in that sense, but they're mainly down to budgetary issues. This is the kind of film, horror film, you wonder how good it could have been with a bigger budget, a bigger production team behind it, because the idea is sound. And it makes for quite a watchable film. I've seen low budget horror films that are just cringe-worthy to watch, but this actually has got something pretty impressive to say, and it is very, very watchable. So I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. I think it's a really, really good attempt. I think it with a bigger budget, this would have been easily, maybe certainly a 7.5 out of 10. So if you get a chance to catch Headshots, give it a go. It's got something important to say. It's a pretty good horror film. There's some decent performances. The production values are pretty good for the budget of this size. It looks pretty polished. It doesn't look overly cheap or anything, and I think for the budget that they had here, the director Chris O'Neill has done a pretty decent job. So check it out if you get the chance. That's my review for Headshots. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please click the like button. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, and of course I'll see you next time on Screen Stars.